Hey, it's JJ Virgin, and welcome to the JJ Virgin Lifestyle Show, where we'll connect with some of the coolest people in the world. Plus, I give you tips that you can put into fast action to up-level your health and your life. Now, today's show is all about starting a food revolution, and I have just an awesome person who has been deep into it to share with you just some behind the scenes of what goes on with the food industry. And we're going to talk a little bit about GMOs and what the real deal is with them. Eating healthy. Does it really cost more to eat healthy? We'll bust through that one. So let me tell you a little bit about today's guest. Today's guest is a longtime buddy, Ocean Robbins. I was fortunate to be on their Food Revolution Summit a couple years back, and it's him and his dad, John. And why this is relevant is John has a really cool hero's journey. He is the guy, he was the grandson of the Baskin-Robbins fortune. Now, you're probably wondering how the heck an ice cream guy could start a food revolution. So that's what we're going to talk about today. It's such a cool, interesting story about what a hero both John and Ocean are, what you can do to start your own revolution, but what they're doing now to really change nutrition and some of the things that you can put into play quickly to make a big shift. So today's guest is Ocean Robbins. All righty, let's do it. Ocean Robbins, welcome to the show. I'm so glad you're here with me today.
I'm so glad to be here with you, JJ.
Okay, I'm going to confess. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm saying this. No one's ever heard this one before. So I had a little addiction growing up.
Did you?
I did. It was Baskin-Robbins pink bubblegum ice cream. That I'm betting you never, ever tried. And why this is relevant is you just heard the last name Robbins. And we're going to talk today about this whole food revolution that you and your dad have started. But I want to give a little backstory of it because I remember hearing the story long, long ago because I grew up on Baskin-Robbins and Pop-Tarts and Captain Crunch, all sorts of superfoods of the day, superfoods of the 70s. I mean, I was getting my colorful food in.
Foods of the hospital.
Yeah, yikes, gosh. Anyway, I spent a long time reversing those trends I started when I was a little girl. So let's talk about where this all started, because it all started with your dad being like just, amazing and saying no. So what happened there?
So as you mentioned, my grandpa, Irvin Robbins, founded a little ice cream company with his brother-in-law, Bert Baskin. And, at the time there was strawberry, vanilla, and chocolate. And for most people, that's what ice cream was. And he was a consummate entrepreneur, and he said we should have many more flavors. In fact, maybe one for every day of the month. So they came up with the 31 flavors concept, and it became the most successful ice cream company in world history. And my dad, John, was groomed from early childhood to one day join in running the family company. He grew up with an ice cream cone-shaped swimming pool in the backyard.
Oh, no!
Yes. And a couple of his claims to fame, he invented Jimoca almond fudge.
Oh, wow. That was my other fave.
Yes. And he also helped to pioneer bringing the pink spoons into the stores so people could get free samples of the flavors before they made their purchase. But as my dad was groomed to join in the company, he also was coming of age. And what happened was that his uncle Bert Baskin ended up dying of heart disease at the age of 54. And my dad's uncle Bert was a big guy, and he ate plenty of the family product. And, my dad took a look at the situation and said, I don't think in good conscience I can spend my life selling a product that's going to contribute to more people getting sick. Now, of course, no one thinks an ice cream cone is going to kill anybody, right? And we all want to have pleasures and healthy pleasures, hopefully, but we all want to have fun in life. But my dad said, he wanted to devote his life to helping people be healthy, and he didn't think Baskin-Robbins was really a way he could do that. So he ended up walking away from any access to the family wealth. And
did everyone hear that? Because that is stunning. I remember when I first heard that, Ocean, I'm like, there's commitment, right? He walked away from the family wealth of the biggest ice cream store in history. Like,
yeah. Yeah, he told his dad he didn't want a trust fund. He didn't want to depend on his dad's achievements. He wanted to, as he came to understand it, follow his own rocky road. And he wound up moving with my mom to a little island off the coast of Canada where they built a one-room log cabin, grew most of their own food, practiced yoga and meditation for several hours a day. And of course, they named their kid Ocean, which is me. And so I grew up to parents who were trying to live as best they could by their values. And I grew up far away from a lot of the world's problems. I had clean air and clean water. I was monetarily poor, but I felt rich because I had healthy food and a healthy life and love in my family. In time, as luck would have it, my dad became a best-selling author. He came out with Diet for a New America in 1987, and it inspired millions of people to look at their food choices as an opportunity.
I remember
to make
it. It was huge in my life. That was huge. It was like one of the things that got me started.
In many people's lives, the media called him the rebel without a cone. So here's where the story gets, I think, particularly interesting, is that my grandpa, in his early 70s, was suffering from the standard American diseases that tend to go with the standard American diet. He had serious heart disease, diabetes, a lot of excess weight, and his doctors sat down with him and said, "Mr. Robbins, you're a very sick man. You probably don't have more than a few years to live unless you change your diet." And they handed him a copy of my dad's book and told him he should read it. Well, here's the amazing thing, is that my grandpa did read it, and he did change his diet. He gave up sugar. He gave up ice cream. He reduced his meat consumption dramatically, and he started eating a lot more whole vegetables and whole foods. And he got tremendous results. He lost 30 pounds. His golf game improved 7 strokes.
Well, that matters. I know with my parents, that's how I could have gotten them.
That's right. Perhaps most important of all, he wound up getting off all of his diabetes and high blood pressure medications, and he lived another 18 more healthy years. And so we've seen in our family so directly what can happen when we follow the standard American diet. My dad's uncle was one of the most successful entrepreneurs in American history. He had a family he loved, but he didn't have his health, and he lost his life. My grandpa was on a similar path, but he made changes and he got results. And, so we've seen the power that food can have to harm or to heal. And through my dad's work, he's inspired millions of people to look at their food choices as a chance to make a difference in the world and help so many people to turn their health and lives around. And now I get to work with him directly. I've traveled the world. I've worked with leaders in over 65 countries. And I launched the Food Revolution Network a few years ago with my dad because I wanted to focus on using online organizing potentials to reach as many people as possible with this message. And we've held Food Revolution summits that have reached more than 600,000 participants. And we've produced online courses and mobilized around issues and actions. And we're standing for healthy, sustainable, humane, and delicious food for everybody. And I often think about our family story and about my grandpa. And I know that he's although he did pass on, about 8 years ago now, his somewhere in heaven, I think he's smiling on us because I know that he experienced the power of this kind of transformation in his own life. And I know he would want as many people as possible to reap the benefits of it.
Well, and you are really doing that. That's what I love with your work. I love the whole food revolution concept, and then the summits that you do. One of the things I've always wanted to do more of is get information. I never want people to say, "Oh, I couldn't do it because I couldn't afford the book," or "I couldn't afford, I couldn't afford the course." It's like you get this information out to everybody, and it's useful, easily accessible, and fantastic. And what I think is beyond cool is that you have an initiative that's aimed at getting nutrition taught in medical school, which, to be honest, is sort of ridiculous that there even needs to be such a thing. Like, really? But let's talk about that, because that is way past due, but so big.
Absolutely. Well, I think a doctor who doesn't know about food is kind of like a firefighter who doesn't know about water. Food is the foundation of health. And yet what we have today is a medical system that, for the most part, acts like food didn't matter. Mm-hmm. And this is because our doctors today have been trained in how to reverse disease by drugs and surgeries. They have been basically taught how to address symptoms. But the underlying cause in most cases is what we're eating. The Institute for Health Metrics at the University of Washington conducted a major study. They published it and called it the Global Burden of Disease. It was the largest study in world history on the causes of death for humanity. Their conclusion was that the American diet is killing 672,000 Americans every single year, which is more than died in World Wars I, II, Vietnam, Korean War, both Iraq wars, the Afghan war, all combined. Only this time the enemy isn't another country, it's our own knives and forks and what we're doing with them. So in this context, you can see the insanity that the average physician in all their years of medical school gets 19 hours of nutritional education. And most of that is focused on what we call a reductionist view that looks at chemical compounds, but doesn't look at how patients should actually eat if they want to be healthy. So in this context, we say that it's high time that doctors learn about nutrition so that they can teach it, so that they can help their patients to be healthy, so they can be advocates for the well-being of the people who place their lives and trust in these doctors' hands.
It's so good. You know, I'm just thinking about this, and I have so many doctor friends, and all of my doctor friends went through their own health crises, found food. It's how they do it. It's like, I'm thinking, gosh, what if in medical school they served healthy food in the cafeterias? That's all you could eat. You actually had to,
right.
That's what you had to eat. And you just did it. You wouldn't have to be taught it. You lived it. Imagine that, It's
so true. I mean, we have McDonald's in hospitals.
Oh, I know. They had it at my kid's hospital. When Grant was in the hospital for his brain injury, 4.5 months, he moved to Children's Hospital, LA, and they had a McDonald's in there. And I was horrified. And then they kept wanting, at both the hospitals, they wanted to feed him Crystal Light. And I'm like, no, he's not having Crystal Light. Like, he's got a brain injury and he's prone to seizures. Like, we're not having artificial sweeteners here. Not that we'd have them anyway, but, and they were like, but what will he drink? I'm like, he'll drink water. It'll be great.
Right.
It'll be fine. Imagine that. They wanted to give him Crystal Light and Ensure. I actually had to put a big sign up that said, no Crystal Light, no Ensure. I bring food,
Yes. Yeah. So our campaign is focused on the National Board of Medical Examiners. They are the institution that is responsible for issuing the tests that physicians must take in order to graduate, when they graduate medical school, in order to get their license. And at present, those tests ignore nutrition. So we think that medical schools are teaching to the test. They want their graduates to pass the tests. That's one of the core metrics for success. And of course, if the tests don't mention whole foods, plant-powered nutrition, then they have no incentive. They have a disincentive to include it in the medical school curricula. That's why there are only 5 medical schools in the United States that have a nutrition department or any dedicated faculty specializing in nutrition. So we think that once we get that on the test, we can take a step towards getting it into medical practice. So we're calling for the National Board of Medical Examiners to include plant-based whole foods nutrition on the test that they produce. It's a simple ask. I think it's pretty straightforward, but I think it could have far-reaching impact.
Now, I've got another one. I just completely applaud you, and that seems like the obvious way to go about it, because then they'd have to learn it. So I love it.
Yeah.
Let's just quickly, this is kind of a heated topic. And so here I'm going to say, let's quickly talk about this. But it comes up all the time. And actually, when I did my Virgin Diet show on PBS on Drop 7 Foods, Feel Better Fast. And one of the things I talked about in that was GMOs. And I still remember, because I was in, when you're doing that, you do pledge drives and people call in. And I had a very angry farmer call in one of the towns I was in, just wanted to get me on the phone and, yell at me. So I'm like, oh my gosh, really? So what is your take on GMOs? Give us a couple of reasons that people should be getting away, far away from them.
Okay. So what's a GMO? Some people think it means God move over, but actually no, it's genetically modified organism. And, Monsanto and the biotechnology industry have told the world that GMOs would bring us more drought-resistant crops, bigger yields to feed a hungry world, that they would reduce our dependency on pesticides, and that they would help to give us better flavor and better nutritional value. But about 25 years into the commercial cultivation of GMOs and the spread of those GMOs into the marketplace, we have not seen any of those promises come to fruition. We haven't seen higher yields. We haven't seen more drought resistance. We haven't seen better flavor and nutrition. And we've seen an increase of more than 580 million pounds of pesticides on these crops compared to their non-GMO counterparts. What we have gotten is two traits, and this is what 99% or more of the GMO crops confer. One is that they are pesticide producing. They literally produce the insecticide Bt in every cell of the plant, which makes it registered with the EPA as a actual pesticide. These are living pesticide factories. You can't wash this stuff off.
Yeah, this is important. You can't, because people say, oh, well, I soaked them in bleach. Right. And I'm like, no, you can't,
No, you can't. You can't get rid of it. This is in every cell. So, and Bt is generally considered fairly non-toxic to humans, but I don't know anyone that wants to sit down and drink the stuff. And what we're talking about is a insecticide that, certain bugs eat it and their stomachs split open and they die. And what are the impact what's the impact of consuming this stuff on the bacteria in your gut? Well, we don't entirely know, but that's pretty concerning to think about. The other trait is that these crops are resistant to herbicides. So they can be sprayed with herbicides and the weeds will die and the crops will not. The most prominent of these herbicides is glyphosate, the active ingredient in Monsanto's Roundup. Now, glyphosate is being sprayed in massive quantities on our food crops now that they're resistant to it, and it is considered a probable carcinogen by the World Health Organization. It's also been patented by Monsanto as an antibiotic. So what's the impact of literally eating Bt and glyphosate in large quantities on the human digestive tract, on human well-being? Well, we don't know, but we know that there's a correlation between the spread of GM crops into our food supply and the rate of food allergies, the rate of gluten intolerance, the rate of a whole host of health problems that are rather mysterious. And correlation is not causation. But when you see a correlation this strong, it makes a lot of people feel concerned and think that we need more study. And we don't need any more study to know that GM crops are like insecticide or pesticide magnets, because they're literally designed to be sprayed with herbicides, which are a form of pesticide. And this is what we're doing to our cropland. It's poisoning our environment. It's poisoning our air and water. And of course, it's contaminating our food supply. So if you want to avoid GMOs, you have to look at where they're coming into our food. And primarily it's 4 crops. It's corn, soy, canola, and sugar beets. And if you can steer clear of getting non-organic versions of any of those crops, then that's the best way to avoid GMOs.
Yeah, and the important thing here is our body is a history book. So these things, it tends to accumulate and store. And that's the other challenge. I look at this and go, okay, we don't know the effects of these things we should study. And well, the challenge is right now the study is on us. This is not how we should study things, right? And so, this needs to be studied elsewhere. I'm not sure who, how you would possibly study it, but it's just very, very insane that we're seeing just such a rise in food intolerance, food allergies, GI issues, shifts in gut microbiome. I mean, it's just like, it's, come on,
Exactly. So one of the first things to do, a lot of people are moving away, obviously, from hyper-processed foods. And one of the things that does is it also gets you away from GMOs, because a lot of the GMOs are hidden in the hyper-processed foods today. In fact, it's virtually impossible to be non-GMO unless you move away from most of the processed foods on the market.
And you'll save money when you do it. And that's the other key thing, because I know you and I both can get on a rant about this, is people always act like healthy food costs more, processed food costs more, and the health bills that go along with it. But when did lentils start costing a lot of money? I'm sorry, they don't,
That's right. Exactly. Yep.
Yeah. So that,
And we have some people think that Whole Foods requires your whole paycheck. But the reality is that actually you can live very simply and actually save money eating a Whole Foods healthy diet. You just have to know how to do it and put in a little time to prepare your food.
yes, that's the thing. Don't, especially if you're going to the Whole Foods grocery store, that big takeaway there is they've got a really nice 365 brand and 365O that are majorly price competitive everywhere. It's just when you get suckered into all the prepared stuff, I always call it my whole wife over there who does all my cooking for me. Then you get, then you start spending some money. But honestly, I did a comparison cart between the typical family and mine was $35 cheaper a week. And I was buying wild, grass-fed, organic. It wasn't like I was out there trying to save money on it. I was buying the stuff that I like to buy. So that myth I want that myth laid to rest. Now, I love your Food Revolution Summits. They are awesome. I know you've been doing them for years. You've got one coming up, right?
We do. We're interviewing some of the top food experts on the planet. Of course, we were thrilled to have you in the summit not too long ago. And this year we're interviewing Dr. Sanjay Gupta, Dr. Joel Furman, Chris Carr, David Perlmutter, Christian Northrup, David Katz, Michael Greger, Neil Barnard, Mark Hyman, Dean Ornish, Vandana Shiva, so many of the brilliant,
you just
brilliant
get
minds of our time.
amazing people. It's fantastic. So I love these, great information. You guys are great interviewers too. So this is just one you do not want to miss. It is really the event of the year for food. To learn more in the food and health world is this. So you can go sign up there at jjvirgin.com. When we decide to make this one easy, just /ocean, like it sounds, jjvirgin.com /ocean, so that you can jump in there. And all of this, you do this every year. You put this entire thing on for free. And I know how much work these things are. Oh my gosh. So big thanks for doing that. It's fantastic. Now I want to throw one thing at you. Curveball, Ocean.
Okay.
What's the one thing you do every day that makes the biggest difference in your life?
Well, to be honest with you, I think it's about attitude. I approach every day from a foundation of a core question, which is, how can I make the best of what's given to me? I think a lot of people focus on trying to change circumstance so that our lives can be better or happier. And of course, circumstance has an effect on your happiness level, but not as much as you might think. Studies have found that, people get hit by a truck, they're paralyzed, they suffer some terrible tragedy, and they're miserable for a long time. But usually, eventually, their happiness comes back to about what it was before. Other people win the lottery, have some great good fortune, they're happier for a period of time, but eventually it comes back to about what it was before. And so my interest is not in changing fate, but in changing what I bring to life. And so I think the most powerful thing I do is to ask, what can I do? How can I participate? How can I contribute? And how can I have as much joy and aliveness as possible?
It's called asking the right questions. I love that.
Yeah.
Right? There's a big difference in the answer of how can I have more joy than, how can I make it through today? Right?
Right. Or why does this always happen to me?
Yeah. Why me? I remember when we were sitting the first day in the hospital and they were telling us to let my son die. And my ex-husband asked the doctor, he said, well, what would you do if it was your son? Right? The doctor was like, you gotta let him die. And he's like, well, I would airlift him. I'm like, really? There you go. It's amazing what happens when you ask the right questions. Like, what's great about today? What am I grateful for? What are the wins from today? Yeah, I love that. So again, I want to just remind everyone, you want to be on this Food Network Food Revolution Summit. You do not want to miss this one. So make sure you go to jjvirgin.com/ocean. Ocean, thank you so much for joining me. You are just awesome. It's always fantastic to talk with you.
It's a total thrill, JJ. I just love what you're doing. I love who you are. I love all the lives you are helping. And it's always an honor and a privilege to work with you.
Thank you. Back at you with that. Now, after the break, I'll be answering a listener's question. So stay with me.
It's scary, but true. Sugar is hiding everywhere. In diet foods, packaged foods, dressings, and even sugar substitutes. It's not about cutting out all sugar. It's knowing which sugars to choose and which to lose. What if you could drop 7 hidden sugars, lose up to 10 pounds in just 2 weeks? JJ Virgin will show you how with a simple 4-step plan to cut cravings and rev up your metabolism to lose fat fast and forever. Visit jjvirgin.com/books and order the Sugar Impact Diet. You can shed up to 10 pounds in 2 weeks. Visit jjvirgin.com/books.
Welcome back. This is the time where I answer a listener's question, and I always like to make these fit with the topic. So please get your questions over to me on my Facebook page at JJ Virgin Official. And I picked out one today, and this one is from Kim in Mendocino. And this just fits perfectly. Kim says, JJ, I cook for a family of 5. I'm trying to stay within a food budget. When you eat healthy, you actually save money. So let me share with you a couple of things that I do that help me save money at the grocery store and beyond. First of all, see if you have a farmer's market in town, because if you have a farmer's market, you want to go over there, meet those growers so you can find out what they're really doing and then stock up. And what's even cooler is if you have growers that have a collective where they'll distribute a food basket to you. You can sign up for one of those once a week. Now, I don't get to do that very often because I travel a lot, but here's what I do. Number one, the first thing that I found that really helps is, again, look at some of the store brands. Whole Foods has really made a point of doing their store brands to be competitive against all the other store brands. And their 365O is their store brand that's organic, just so you know. So that's one way that I save money. But the big thing that I do is I don't buy prepared foods, because that's where you're spending money paying for someone else to prepare it. And so what I do is I look for the things on sale that I can put in the freezer or pantry. So whenever there's a sale, I stock up. I actually have an extra freezer so I can stock up. I get from my buddies over at Butcher Box, and you can go to jjvirgin.com/butcher box to save money there. And I think you get a free bacon for starting, but they are the most inexpensive delivery service I've seen for grass-fed beef, pastured chicken, which is hard to find, pastured pork. So there's one key thing I do to save money. Another way to save money is to use Thrive Market. So I'm giving you all my favorite resources here. Thrive Market, and if you go to jjvirgin.com/Thrive Market, you can jump in there and get a free, I think it's a free 3-month membership. But that's basically Costco meets Amazon meets Whole Foods, where they will deliver organic food to your door. And this is especially important if you're kind of out further out and it's harder to get, and shipping is free. So those are a couple of resources that I love. But when you think about it, first of all, one of the best things you can do is have a slow cooker, a crock pot, something like that, and I actually got one of those for my son for the holidays this year for college. But you can make your bone broth in there, which is a really inexpensive thing to do. You can then take that bone broth and you can throw in legumes, you can throw in wild rice, you can throw in vegetables and make your own soups. So that's easy, and those stay in the fridge for a long time. I have my pantry stocked with all sorts of beans and wild rice. And then in my freezer are the grass-fed meats and pastured pork and chicken and wild fish. And I get my wild fish over from Vital Choice. And I always look for when they're having any kind of sales or coupons, I use them. And then I buy bigger bulk sizes of things like my grass-fed ghee, and I keep those in the fridge. And then I buy my vegetables, my organic vegetables. Now, and frozen berries and cherries for my shakes. I watch for sales of things, and I don't buy like the broccoli crowns. I buy the whole broccoli, but I watch for sales. And then I stock up on things, and I buy seasonal and I buy local. And that helps a lot. And the other thing that you'll want to do, because Ocean talked about the 4 key GMO crops, the other thing you want to look at is the Dirty Dozen and the Clean 15. What things do you have to buy organic, and what things can you take a little bit of a pass from? Go to environmentalworkinggroup.org, and that's EWG.org, and you will get the Dirty Dozen and Clean 15 list, and then you'll know where you really must be careful and make sure. Things like celery and berries are the ones you want to make sure you're getting organic. All right. And honestly, what you're going to find when you do this, yes, you might spend a little bit more money on the proteins. If you eat animal protein, you will save it on the other stuff and you'll end up ahead. The biggest place I see that people spend money is either waste. They buy food and they don't use it. And that's why I like to prepare a couple meals at once. In worst case, freeze it. Or they're buying processed food, and that's where we spend a ton of dough. So I can make meals 5 to 15 minutes, and generally about 5 ingredients, super easy. So check out my cookbooks, because I've got a lot of meals like that. And again, make one meal and then repurpose it for a couple more meals, especially like if you're making a chicken dish, have that for lunch the next day and maybe then put it in a soup. All right. If you'd like to submit a question, again, you can go over to my Facebook page, JJ Virgin Official, and leave a little question there. And I would hugely appreciate it if you would jump on over to Stitcher or iTunes and leave a review, even a 5-star review. That would be so awesome. So it helps a bunch too. So thank you. And if you're there, while you're there, hey, subscribe and share it with your friends. Thank you. All right. This is JJ Virgin signing off and reminding you to live courageously. Show up. Step up. You are stronger than you think.